I'm Idiotech, and this is my review of Firewatch. Many would classify this game as a walking simulator, and I feel that does a disservice to the genre. It's a story-driven game. Simple as that. It does share many of the characteristics you might find in a game like Gone Home, which was not a game I particularly enjoyed. However, in the case of Firewatch, you are required to roleplay as the character Henry, and your choices, while not necessarily impactful on the main plot, do drastically enhance the story being told here. In short, if you're looking for a narrative-driven exploration game focused around adult themes and human relationships, Firewatch is definitely a game worth checking out. So let's talk about what's good in regards to Firewatch. First up is the art style and the presentation. Now, this is going to be subjective for some of you out there. Some of you don't like this art style, maybe you don't like the presentation. I do. I think it's wonderful. It has a very painterly style to it, and it certainly does help to immerse you in the natural wilderness that this game presents. I love the art style and presentation in this game, and while slightly cartoony, it still managed to draw me in and be very, very immersive. The second really good thing about this game is the characters, the writing, and the voice acting.
Hey, there's a tree out here that's been ripped to hell.
And?
Don't you think that's, disconcerting?
Henry, there are 500-pound grizzly bears out here. They sharpen their claws on trees.
We don't have grizzlies in Colorado. People killed them a long time ago.
Well, in the thoroughfare, they hunt people, they kill people, they bury their bodies, and then come back weeks later to eat them because they prefer rotten meat. People just disappear.
Don't you think that's disconcerting?
No, Henry, that's life.
Christ, lady.
These characters are insanely believable. I related to them almost instantly, especially the initial part of the game where you learn about Henry's backstory. That was so engaging. I let my wife actually sit there and watch through that section with me and help me make those choices. And after that section, she was so upset by what happened that she didn't want to continue playing the game with me. The voice acting as well is superb. The characters are extremely relatable. The human relationships that are developed in this game feel very believable and very satisfying as a result. The music and sound also is wonderful in this game. The sound effects in the natural environment of this wilderness do enhance the immersion drastically, and the music on offer here only exists at certain points in the game, but it really highlights certain moments, increases that sense of paranoia during tense moments. It's really, really well handled. The story is the key focus of this game. I personally really enjoyed the story. I thought it was a nice twist, a nice change on what you might come to expect. Without spoiling it, the game focuses heavily on human imagination, what you are able to come up with in your own head to explain the situations happening in the game. I can't really talk about it much more without getting into heavy spoilers. Just suffices to say, imagination and what we expect and our preconceptions of what happens in stories and games is the key thing on offer here. I found it hugely immersive. I loved the characters in this game. It got me hooked within about 5 minutes, and I sat down and played the entire game in one sitting. The game is very short, and I will get onto that in a second, but overall, the presentation, the characters, the writing, the voice acting, the music and sound, and the story are fantastic in this game. Let's talk about the bad things now. The length. Now, this is going to be an issue for some people and not for others. For me personally, the length doesn't bother me. I'm the kind of gamer who plays lots of different games, and I don't mind having a game that lasts 3 hours as long as it's good. For me, quality over content is important. However, for some of you out there, value is going to be what's on your mind, and this game certainly doesn't offer good value for money. It's about 3 to 4 hours long, depending on how long you choose to navigate the world. And as a result, some of you out there may find that that's just not reasonable for the price, and I completely understand that. Another negative of this game is its navigation system. You're forced to use a map, and while the map is very readable and comprehensive, a slight change would have made this much easier for me personally to navigate and for people who are maybe not gamers to navigate. Essentially, in the center of the map or wherever you're located, you'll have a little circle that represents who you are and where you are. Now, if that had a little arrow on it that indicated what direction I was currently facing, that would have solved all of my problems with navigation. As a result, it doesn't have that, and I got lost several times. That may be intended. It may be an intended design choice to make you get lost in the environment and have to learn things and pay attention to detail, and that's completely fine. But I think for a more casual player who might want to approach this game, a little arrow on that circle to indicate where I was actually facing would have been hugely helpful at times. Another negative of this game is the performance. Now, the frame rate for me on PC hovered around 60 FPS the entire time. That wasn't the issue. The issue was that when the game loaded into new environments, certain tile sets were being loaded as I approached new areas, the game hitched and stuttered quite badly at points, and that did break my immersion quite a lot. And in a story-driven game that's focused on immersing you in this environment, that does take you out of the experience, and it was a negative point for me. Another issue is invisible walls. Invisible walls are everywhere in this game and you'll run into them frequently, and that's kind of a problem for immersion as well, so that's a negative point for me too. Finally, the controls take a little while to get used to. After a while I did get used to them, and I did play this game on a controller just simply for the purposes of recording. It makes gameplay look a lot smoother when you use an analog stick. However, the controls both on the keyboard and mouse and the controller itself felt a little fiddly, honestly, when I first started playing the game. I did eventually get used to them, but initially it was a bit of a shock to me, just navigating the controls in general. So that was a sticking point for me. In conclusion, Firewatch is literally one of my favorite games to release so far in 2016. It will most likely end up on my top 10 games of 2016 list. It's a wonderful, narrative-driven experience with great characters, great voice acting, wonderful presentation, great music, and art. Can't stress that enough. But the key thing that matters here, to me at least, is the way that this game plays with human imagination. That is the key thing on offer here. It will mess with your head, and I absolutely loved every second of this experience. However, if you're someone that values length in a game, quantity, you're not going to get that here for the price. If you have issues with performance, this is going to bug you in certain areas. If you're not someone who likes narrative-driven exploration games, you're not going to like this game. But for me, it's one of the best experiences I've had all year, and I can't recommend it enough. Now, I want to talk about spoilers here, and I urge you strongly, if you have any interest in playing this game, and quite frankly you should because it's a brilliant game, please do not listen to this section until you have completed the game. Also, you should probably avoid the comments section. Let's get into the spoilers. Now, a lot of people have an issue with the ending of this game. They feel it's anticlimactic. I feel that was the point. I'll explain why. This game has a huge focus on paranoia and imagination. It wants you to freak out as if you were a person in the woods on your own. You got to remember, Henry's out there, he's gone through some pretty serious shit in his life, he's very traumatized by essentially what is the death of his wife. She doesn't know who he is, she's completely gone, okay? He's grieving. He goes out into the woods to escape. He's on his own. He has no point of human contact other than Delilah, which he talks to over a radio. Things get pretty isolated for Henry. You're out in the woods, weird stuff starts happening, and your brain immediately jumps to the worst possible conclusion. You avoid mundane answers to these questions and instead jump into paranoia. That's what the game wants you to do. It wants you to overblow every situation you're presented with, and it ends up with you believing there's some kind of crazy government conspiracy or someone's chasing you or something's happening. In the end, it turns out it was just some guy whose son had accidentally fallen to his death or he had killed his son. There was a mundane explanation for what initially appeared to be quite a paranoid-fueled conspiracy. That's real life. If we're in the woods at night and we hear a branch break, we immediately assume something's out there trying to kill us or get us. Well, at least a lot of us do. It's part of our experience as human beings to overreact to things, to protect ourselves, to have that survival instinct. And this game plays heavily on that survival instinct to get you to fuel paranoia, to fuel your imagination, to make you think something more serious is actually taking place here. And you and Delilah both feed off each other. You both make each other more and more and more paranoid as the game progresses. And I love that. And the fact that it did have a mundane ending is understandably anticlimactic to some. But to me, I thought it was very clever. It expressed what it is to be human, That's what people do. We overreact to things. There's a reason so many people in this world believe in conspiracy theories. We're naturally geared to go in that direction. Paranoia and imagination are real things, and this game exploits that wonderfully, I might add. Now, people have some questions regarding certain plot points in the game. They're like, how does this man gain access to all this technology? How did he build that crazy base? Well, if you actually dig into the plot a little more, you read some of the notes, and you find an elk in the game, you'll realize that that base, hidden behind a fence, was actually a government operation to track deer. Simple as that. Now, the man whose son died, he had just gained access to that base and was using the equipment to track you and monitor your conversations. Not complicated, but I can understand how some people may have missed that plot point. Some people also ask questions about who Delilah was on the phone to when you overhear her conversation early in the game. It's just a boyfriend or one of her lovers. If you read the notes in the base you'll see very clearly that Delilah is not a particularly monogamous person. She even talks about this early in the game. She's had multiple affairs and she still is in a relationship with her boyfriend who she claims to you not to be in a relationship with anymore. So I'm pretty sure the conversation there is just about her cheating on people. Simple as that. And you overheard it and she gets angry with you as a result. Now, another thing that people have a problem with is the fact that you never get to meet Delilah. Now, that makes sense to me because the game is a game about isolation. It's a game about imagination, about being on your own. You are supposed to imagine what Delilah looks like. When you go to her lookout at the end of the game, she's got a little picture she's drawn of you based on your description of yourself to her over the phone. It's a game about being alone. To meet her would have destroyed that entirely, in my opinion. And you have to take into consideration that both of these people are the kinds of people who run away from their problems, who run away from human relationships and like to keep people at arm's length, which is exactly what Delilah does in her tower and exactly what Henry does. So to me, it works perfectly. But if you're just looking for a standard story experience that has some kind of twist and a nice climactic ending, that's not what this game is about. This game is about paranoia. It's about human emotion. It's about being alone. It's about imagination. And it plays on those tropes. It plays on the fact that we know in our heads that most stories will result in a climax to fuck with us, quite frankly. And I really enjoyed that. However, I do understand the criticisms people are laboring towards this game. It does feel a little short and the ending does seem to wrap up a little quickly. But overall, it was a wonderful story experience for me. And hopefully this discussion on spoilers has helped to maybe give you some greater insight into how the game plays out. As always, if you found this video helpful or useful in some way, please let me know in the comments below. If you disagree with something I said, feel free to let me know also. And if you want to support the channel, please like, favorite, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time.